Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Podcastina. I'm doing a solo episode today, which is really half solo, half Monty here is my wonderful guest. Hopefully his panting is not too much of an issue on the recording, but who doesn't love a good dog pant? Speaking of dogs, when are we going to have a dog paw scented candle? Okay, when is it coming? Because a little ahead of that, just a little sniff of those infamous Frito feet. They put me in such a good mood for the whole day. It might be a little weird to have your whole house scented like Fritos, but you just explain to all the dog lovers in your life that that's what your best friend's furry little paws smell like, and it's just a lovely way to start the day. I bought him a coat. Maybe I didn't need to buy him a coat. He's a Pomeranian, for anyone not watching the video. He has a lot of fur, and he's probably plenty warm as it is. But this is how much consumerism gets to me sometimes, that I'm walking around TJ Maxx, and they had this pleated little bright green jacket, which looks so good when it's contrasting against his orange fur. And it was $14.99. I don't know if it would have been a couple dollars more if I would have said no to it, but I bought it to him because I'm getting ready to go to Ohio here, and it's very cold there, so that's how I justified it. I come home, I put it on him. It doesn't fit. He's a big boy. I bought him a size small, and I couldn't get it to close around him, so it's not going to work out. I'm going to have to go return it. I don't know. I'm just one of those people who shopping tends to be a little bit of like a nerve-soothing activity for me. It puts me in a bit of a meditative state. So sometimes I just like to walk around stores like Home Goods and TJ Maxx and Target for fun without the intent of buying anything. And if I do buy something, it's typically some kind of silly impulse purchase. I'm sure that that's relatable. Today I want to talk about this very cool news story that I've been following that I think speaks to me because of my love for the ocean and oceanic wildlife. I've been down a bit of a rabbit hole about this story. It takes place up in Washington in an area called Penn Cove. What's really interesting that's happening there right now is that orcas, like a family of orcas, are back in the area for the first time since the 70s. I'm really blown away by orcas. They're so incredibly intelligent. They're so magical. They're huge. They're powerful. I'm sure I would shit my pants if I actually saw one. It's on my bucket list to go do like a kayaking tour in Alaska, because I think that that's a pretty high probability way of seeing orcas. But anyway, the story is that in the summer of 1970, I guess the same earlier generations of the same pod of orcas were being captured around Penn Cove. So dozens of them were herded up. They were taken into captivity. They were captured in nets, and, just absolutely horrible for these orcas. 80 of them in total were rounded up. So the thing about these animals that maybe isn't common knowledge, that I'm just learning myself by following this story too, is that they're cultural. Orcas are a cultural animal. So even though we don't know exactly how they communicate between themselves, and they tell other orcas other stories. So after the roundup that happened in this area in the 70s, orcas just stopped going there. They completely abandoned the area. Marine biologists probably initially suspected that maybe there wasn't enough food for them, and that's why they stopped going there. Maybe it was some sort of climate situation, climate change, whatever you want to call it. Maybe that was the reason behind it, until we learned more about how they communicate. And what actually happened in that area is that orcas found out that their relatives were being brought into captivity, they were being killed, that became a dangerous area. So they started warning the other orcas for 50 years not to go into this area, until very recently they've just started reemerging in there. A few at a time have been captured just on video, not physically captured. I want to be really clear on that. But there have been sightings recently, and it's really exciting because it speaks to community healing within the orca community, and it also is coming at a time when there's a better understanding among people to leave these beautiful animals alone and to stop capturing them and to let them do their thing in peace. It's really, really remarkable, the healing abilities of these animals, that they're actually able to go ahead and show up in this area after everything that they've learned, after everything that they've gone through. I don't know if this is well known or not, but the only human death that has happened from an orca attack has been in captivity. We've all heard of, the blackfish, the SeaWorld situations that have happened. So those are the only times that there's been recorded history of an orca killing a person, which means as many interactions as there have been out in the ocean, there has never been a lethal one. And that just, again, speaks to the intelligence of these remarkable animals. I think orcas look at us the same way we look at them, right? Really intelligent animals that could potentially be super dangerous. All right, that's my orca story. I also wanted to talk about, this has been on my mind a lot. I just finished a really cool book called 5 Types of People Who Can Ruin Your Life by Bill Eddy. It's about exactly what it sounds like it's about. It's about 5 recurring personality types who, as Bill labeled in the book, are high conflict personalities. So he calls them HCPs. That acronym shows up through the book. It's a really easy read if anyone's interested in it. I probably read it in like 3-4 days, super quick. The book really just outlines 5 really common personality disorders that tend to go hand in hand with high conflict people. It says outright that someone doesn't have to have one of these 5 personality disorders to be a high conflict personality, but that it's pretty common, and that typically if you're coming across someone who is at a diagnosable level of one of these personality disorders, that they're more likely to be a high conflict person as well. So it's things that we hear about a lot these days, right? It was someone who's narcissistic, who would be on a diagnosable NPD level according to the DSM-5, which is like the diagnostic book that people who work in mental health use. Another one of them is borderline personality disorder. They talked about antisocial personality disorder is another one. They talked about histrionic personality disorders, which are a little more rare than those other ones. I don't know if that was 4 or 5. Anyhow, so the correlation between those specific personality disorders, the diagnosable ones, and that those people have a tendency to be high conflict, and how you can kind of keep your eyes peeled to the signs, to the clues, to the behavioral cues that someone might be one of these high conflict personalities, so that you can tread with a little more knowledge, right? So that we can be out in the world. I didn't read this to affirm myself that there's, so many problematic personalities, even though it feels like it sometimes in the day-to-day. I read it more... Here's what I'll say. Here's my biggest takeaway from the book. If you don't want to read it, this is actually a really comforting piece of information. And this tells me that you don't need to be hyper vigilant. You don't need to always be on the lookout, but you do just need to go ahead and kind of take the blinders off and really observe behavior over observing what someone is telling you about themselves. So in the book, it says that these high conflict personality types make up roughly 10 to 15% of the population. That might sound like a lot. I'm actually going to go ahead and hyperfixate on the fact that that's a pretty small number. That's not that bad. When you zoom out, if let's say we have, 300 million people in America, whatever the population is too, then yeah, you do end up with about 30 million high conflict personalities. But I think the glass half full assessment of that is that 90% of people are not out to get you. They're not trying to ruin your life, as the title says. And that can be really comforting. And on the flip side of that 10%, what I'm going to take from that is to observe people's behavior. If it's something that doesn't seem kosher, if it's something that seems really problematic, if I don't know how to categorize a certain type of behavior that I'm seeing from someone, I can now ask myself, would 90% of people do this? And that's a really good way to make the assessment. If you have somebody at work who's really difficult, who has a pattern of these outlandish behaviors, whether it's towards you or it's towards somebody else, be on the lookout, like be a support system for other people dealing with high conflict personalities. But if someone does something kind of batshit crazy, sit there and ask yourself, would 90% of people do this? And that's going to be a good jump off point to discover whether someone is one of these personalities. And the book really explains, it gives you these non-confrontational tools for how to handle those types of people so that you don't make the problem worse. Because at the end of the day, when you're dealing with one of these personality disorders, one of these high conflict people, they are not going to respond well to accusations that they are that type of person. They're also not going to, you just have to handle them with such care. You have to handle them from a position of understanding that if you're running into one of these people, the absolute best thing you can do for yourself is to try to de-escalate no matter what. You cannot go toe-to-toe with these people because those are the situations where then lawyers get involved and legal action starts taking place. And if you are really dealing with like a core HCP, you have to protect yourself at all costs. And that actually means backing down a lot and finding ways to disengage. So really valuable book for that. If you don't want to read it, that's my Spark Notes. What else did I want to bring up here? Monty is such a sweet boy here. Oh my goodness. We're about to go home for Thanksgiving. It's going to be nice. I want everybody to be kind to their families, regardless of how you feel about what just happened in America with the election. I think that I see a lot of here's what I see a lot of that I want people to not do while they're with their families. That I want people to take a break from virtue signaling at the expense of their core relationships. Okay, here's how I've been staying sane lately, because I find myself working 7 days a week on one of 4 different projects that I'm involved in, one being this podcast, which is such a blessing to have. I'm not trying to complain, but I end up working on it about 7 days a week. I'm trying to come at everything from a place of just over-the-top positivity. I think this is part of my journey into manifestation and my deep understanding that even if the woo-woo aspects of it aren't real, even if manifesting doesn't quote-unquote work in the traditional sense that you expect it to, I always think of it this way, like doing the affirmations and picturing yourself with your dream come true, like just really absorbing that feeling, staying in that feeling, and knowing that part of the work of manifesting whatever you want into your life, whether it's a relationship or money or a new job or just peace. Honestly, let's manifest peace. We need it now more than ever. If it doesn't work, right? If affirmations and mantras don't work, the worst case scenario is that you've brainwashed yourself into a more positive way of thinking, a more positive way of looking at yourself, and hopefully a more positive way of looking at the world, right? I don't know anyone who isn't mean to themselves on a pretty regular basis. I don't know what that is about all of our collective upbringings. I know that bears true for me. I had a therapy session where my therapist straight up told me, she goes, every time you talk to me, you get so excited to come in here, and whatever tool you just learned out in the world, you use it to be mean to yourself. I've really been sitting on that like, holy shit, do I really? And I think a lot of us do that. You read some self-help book, you think you're gaining something out of it, and what's actually happening is that you're using whatever tools you learned in that book to then be like, oh, well, now I know I'm not doing A, B, and C. And so I think where the manifestation, where the mantras and the affirmations are helping me a lot is to hopefully rewire some of those neurons in my brain that are responsible for telling myself that I'm a fucking dumbass if I make some kind of really simple, really nonchalant mistake. We all make mistakes. It's going to happen. It's part of the journey. You have to take accountability, right? You have to course correct when you can. But to make a mistake and then go, oh, I'm such a fucking dumbass, like, that is not the answer. And thankfully, in the work that I've been doing, I've been finding ways to be lighter on myself, and I'm really hoping that that translates into being lighter with other people. I find myself being really judgmental towards others, towards myself, and it's a place where I can, wow, loud helicopter. That's a place where there's tons and tons of room for improvement. So I'm excited about that. If anyone is looking for ways to start on that kind of journey, there's a few YouTube videos that I'll watch in the morning to start my day. They say that when you're first waking up and your brain is in theta wave state, that you're more suggestible, so that's a good time to do these affirmations, because first of all, what a great way to start the day on a positive note, to be like, I'm worthy of all these things that I want. They already exist for me. I just have to align energetically with everything that I'm looking to get out of life. So you're striving to have a better aura. Who doesn't want that? We can all sense when a person walks into a room angry or upset. It's tangible before anyone even says anything. So the opposite is true too. If you're walking into rooms with a positive mindset, feeling good, other people are going to see that and reflect it back to you. It's going to set a good precedent for the day. So the tools that I've been using in the morning, they've been on YouTube. I'll get up and I'll listen to either Abraham Hicks. When you start looking at Abraham Hicks videos, they're roughly all like 15 minutes long. YouTube will just offer up a new one every day. And it's just a really simple, quick thing that I can throw on in the background while I'm brushing my teeth, while I'm doing my skincare routine, while I'm walking Monty. It doesn't take a lot of time. If you're going to listen to anything while you're doing your morning routine, then I would suggest that. Also from that, I learned about Neville Goddard is another one that has a lot of free content out there, as well as Wayne Dyer. Those are like my top 3 that I really like listening to. The message is the same across all 3. Try to adapt the feeling that you imagine yourself getting whenever your dream comes to fruition, right? So if you find that feeling first, the theory of manifesting is that the desire that causes that feeling will find you if you just find the feeling first. And like I said, worst case scenario, if it doesn't happen, then guess what? You feel good. And isn't that better? And then the other thing that I listen to on YouTube every once in a while, Naval Ravikant, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. He's kind of more on the motivational, hardworking side of things versus woo-woo manifesting things. But I was listening to a YouTube of his recently, and this quote really stuck with me because I'm just a perpetually impatient person. And I love the way that this divides impatience. So the quote is, impatience with actions, patience with results. Inspiration is perishable, so act fast. And I love that because it actually just justifies and validates my impatience with actions, but then doubles down and tells me to start having patience with results. I love that. But inspiration is perishable, so act fast. If you have a good idea, if something strikes you while you're laying in bed or while you have a little lull during the day, maybe you are in the middle of an activity that you can interrupt because something bigger than you has sent you a good idea. This just gives you permission to stop what you're doing and follow the good idea. I just love that so much. I'm trying to enact that on a daily basis. I'm continuing to allow myself to have impatience with actions and continuing to try to learn to have patience with results. All right, I hope that there's been some valuable things in this episode. over and out from Monty and myself. If you like the show, don't forget to do me a tiny, teeny little favor that goes a really long way, which is to hit that subscribe button. Maybe send it to a friend. Maybe there's a nugget of wisdom in there for them too. All right, thanks for listening. Bye.